Hello again and welcome back to our course on PowerPoint 2019. In this section we're going to be taking a look at navigating around a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to just introduce to you some of the main aspects of the screen and some things that can really help improve your efficiency when we're working in PowerPoint. Now what you can see on the screen here, I currently have what we call normal view showing on the screen, and in normal view what you can see are the main slides. So this is the slide that I'm currently clicked on, and I can also see in the left hand pane I have little mini previews of the other slides that make up my presentation. Now, as I said, this is what we classify as normal view, and this in general is the view that you work in when you're making edits to your PowerPoint presentation. Now, obviously, with a lot of PowerPoint presentations, the end aim is to display those presentations. So either we might be presenting to an audience, or we might be wrapping it up in a PowerPoint presentation for somebody else to run. And if you think about it, if I was presenting this to an audience, I don't really want them to see the view that I currently have. So I really just want them to focus on the current slide. I don't want them to be able to see all of the other slides down the side or the ribbon or anything along those lines. Now, in order to do that, what we do is we switch our PowerPoint presentation into what we call slideshow view. And again, there are a couple of different ways that you can switch between different views. The first one I'm going to show you is probably the simplest. If you cast your eyes down to the bottom right hand corner, you'll see down here we have a number of little icons, and as I hover over them you can see that one says normal, which is the view that we're in now. We have slide sorter view, which I'll talk about a bit later. We have reading view, again I'll talk about that a bit later. And then finally we have slideshow view. So let's click on that one. And now this takes me into what the audience is going to see. I can then easily navigate between my slides, so I can move them on or I can move them back depending on what I want to show at that particular time. Now, in order to navigate through my presentation, again, there are a couple of different ways that I can do this. I can click my mouse to move me on to the next slide, or alternatively what I can do is just use the arrow keys on my keyboard, either the one going to the right to move forward or the one going to the left to move back. So it's really up to you which one of those methods you choose. If I want to jump out of my presentation, so maybe I finished it or maybe I want to make some edits, I can just press the escape key on my keyboard and that will take me back to that normal view. Using those icons in the bottom right hand corner. There is an alternative way of moving through your views, and that is by using the ribbons. So again, if I go up to the view ribbon, you can see the first group there, presentation views, that has normal, outline, slide sorter, and I have a couple of other views in there as well, notes page and reading pane. So I can easily switch between my views from there as well. Now what you might notice there is that we don't actually have a slideshow view. You'll find that on a separate tab. So again, we have a tab here called Slideshow, and you'll see in this first group here called Start Slideshow, we have a choice. We can start our slideshow from the beginning. So if I was to click that, it starts it from the beginning, and remember, escape to come out. And you'll also notice as if I hover over, there is a shortcut key to start the slideshow from the beginning. So sometimes that's a little bit easier and more efficient as well. So the shortcut key here would be F5. I could also choose to start my slideshow from the current slide. So what we mean by that is whichever one I'm clicked on. So if I was clicked on slide 4 and I was to choose from current slide, it's going to run the slideshow from that particular slide and escape to come out. So a couple of different options in there for you when it comes to running your slideshow. So now I'd just like to talk a little bit about the actual slides that you're using. I would say that when you are creating a presentation, it's really important to think about the layout of your presentation. And it's also really important to have a title slide to introduce the topic to the audience. So you can see here in my example, we have Wanderlust Travel, and then I have a subtitle underneath, Unleash the Explorer Within. And that really just introduces the topic that I'm about to talk about to the audience. Another thing to watch out for when you're creating PowerPoint presentations is to be consistent with the fonts that you're using. So I would advise against having lots of different types of fonts. You really just want to keep it consistent so that it flows throughout the presentation. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about over the next few modules is slide layout. And I just want to show you a little bit about what I mean by that. If I go to slide 2, you'll see what I have here is a title, so where it says Why Choose Us, and then underneath I have some bullet points. And this slide is actually a completely different layout to the previous slide. So this first one is what we call a title slide layout, and this second one is a title and content, the content being these bullet points down here. And this is something I'm going to delve into in the next few modules to show you exactly all the different types of slide layout that you have. Now again, when it comes to titles, I would always recommend that you do put a title at the top of each slide. And the reason for that is, if you imagine you're giving a presentation, you have an audience, it's fairly common for people to get slightly distracted. Maybe they look at their phone, maybe they just zone out for a moment. You want to make sure that whenever they come back to you, that they know exactly what you're talking about at any given time, and they can quickly pick up again from where they left off. So that's why it's so important to make sure that each slide has some kind of title or something that indicates what that slide is all about. Now, as I said, what we've got here is a title and content slide, and I currently have some bullet points in that slide. And it's worth noting that you can have up to 5 levels of bullets in a slide. So here I have what we call first level bullets. And if I was to move to slide 3, you'll see I have some first and some second level bullets. In this case, they're both the same. You might find with some templates or layouts that the second indented bullet is a slightly different icon, but in this case they're the same. But you can distinctly see that there is a difference between those first and second bullets by the indentation. Let's take a look at some other things that we have in this presentation. If I go to slide 4, again I have my title at the top, and what I've got on this slide is something we call smart art. And again, this is something I'm going to go through with you a bit later on in the course, but this is just a nice way to add some kind of process flow, or maybe if you want to add an organizational chart or something along those lines, smart art is something that's a really good thing to use for doing those kinds of things. So you can see here I've got it illustrating the booking process. Underneath that, I also have some images. Now, these are actually a fairly new thing that have been added to PowerPoint 2019. These are called icons, and you'll find them on the insert ribbon along with all of your drawings and your shapes. And this is a library full of really nice little icons that you can add into your presentation, and they're all completely editable. So if I click on one of the icons just there, you'll see at the top, I now get the graphics format contextual ribbon, which will allow me to make any changes I want to that particular icon. You can see there I can change the color, I can do all sorts of things with it. So icons are a really nice way to add a visual element into your presentation. Let's look at the next slide, slide 5. Here again I have that title at the top, but this time I've inserted a couple of pictures, and I might have inserted them from the web, or I may have had them stored off onto my PC. I'm going to show you how to insert pictures using both of those techniques. Move on to slide 6. Now I have something slightly different on here, and again this is a feature that's relatively new in PowerPoint 2019. And these are what we call 3D models, and they're actually pretty cool. What I can do is if I click on this backpack, for example, you see I get this little icon in the middle, which is a rotation, and it's actually a 3D image, so I can rotate it any way I like and set it just so. So that's a really nice way to add a high quality, I guess you would call a vector graphic that you can rotate into your PowerPoint presentation. So those are quite fun to explore as well. Let's move down to the next slide. Again, we have something slightly different in this one. We have the title, but then we have a chart. So if you're used to using charts in Excel or inserting charts, then this works in a fairly similar way. You'll see when we do start to insert charts, you're actually using a kind of preview of an Excel spreadsheet in order to get the figures in to create this chart in PowerPoint. So that's a really nice way of displaying, in this case, sales figures by country. Moving down to slide 8. Again, something slightly different. We have our title, About Us, and then what I have underneath there is just again some smart art, but I'm using it in a slightly different way than before. I'm using it in combination with a picture. And again, you'll see when we go into the smart art library, you'll see there are a few layouts in there or a few diagrams you can insert, which also allow you to insert pictures. So again, a really nice way of illustrating that About Us section. And finally, this is just my finished slide, so I'm encouraging them to book now. I'm letting them know that they'll get a 20% discount if they're a new customer, and you can see that's a bullet point. And again, I've just inserted a picture directly into my slide. So lots of different elements that make up my PowerPoint presentation, which make it into a really nice visually appealing presentation that flows. It's consistent in its color and in its font. Now we are going to move into how you edit presentations, and just remember that if you want to edit a particular slide, all you need to do is when you're in normal view, which we are now, just make sure you're clicked on the slide that you want to edit, and then you can go to town and do whatever you like within that particular slide. So that's the basics of navigating around a first PowerPoint presentation. In the next section, we're going to move on to looking at the desktop, and I will be giving you an overview of the desktop screen so you know exactly what all the buttons do, which will help you navigate and create your PowerPoint presentations slightly more efficiently. So I will see you then.